Hi, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema. And as you might have noticed, I am doing this one solo, but don't worry, Dylan will be back next week. But I'm going to jump right into my first title, and that is A Midwinter's Tale. So this was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who is very famous for doing some really amazing um, Shakespeare adaptations. One of my favorites is actually his Hamlet, which is over 4 hours long. It's the complete unabridged version, which probably will only maybe like a fraction of you would probably be into. But anyways, this comedy follows a ragtag group of actors as they mount a production of Hamlet, and seemingly everything goes wrong from the jump. Yet through this chaos, the cast and crew really bond, and that bond is tested when the director must make a difficult choice. So Midwinter's Tale is charming at times and has some really funny moments. The issue for me is this is clearly trying to be a Christopher Guest movie, yet it's very underbaked plot wise and cliche filled, and I think all of that really holds it back. It's a bit of a predictable film overall, and as funny as it is, more jokes don't land than land, unfortunately. So this is shot in black and white, and I think that's a really great aesthetic choice. You can see in the back here. One of the Warner Archive Blu-ray looks really nice. Everything is well balanced, and yeah, it's very clean and very nice looking. I never have an issue with Warner Archive, and yeah, unfortunately, this didn't really wow me, but I don't know if you're a big fan of like Branick's films and his take on sort of like a, um, I guess his sort of mockumentary. It's not really a mockumentary, but it's sort of like has that flavor. So if you're curious, it's not the worst. It has some really fun moments, but I just think that it never really finds its own footing. So my next title is also Warner Archive, and that is Saving Grace from 2000. And if you watch the show on the BBC show Vera, that is the lead actress in that, which I thought was pretty cool because coincidentally, I'm also watching that show. So it was kind of neat to see her in this. So the movie's about a woman named Grace, obviously, who is suddenly widowed, and she finds out that she's deeply in debt. Her husband kind of kept her out of the loop with the finances, and she must find over 300,000, I guess, pounds in her case, to save her home. So it just so happens that Grace has a green thumb, and she soon cooks up a scheme with the local pot dealer to grow marijuana, high quantities of it, and then cash out. So, Saving Grace is set in a tiny village with a host of colorful characters. I love this. I think it adds a degree of charm and a layer and more layers to what is essentially kind of a middle of the road comedy, if I'm being honest. My biggest issue is there's a lot of unrealistic things that have to happen in order to move the plot along. I won't spoil the end, but it feels like a cop out where it kind of allows Grace to do the right thing, but still be okay in the end. And again, it's hard to really critique the ending because I don't want to spoil it, obviously. But yeah, it's a feel good movie, so I don't hate that, but I just feel like the writing in this really lets it down. And I hate to harp on movies that I wasn't really a big fan of, but this has just kind of been one of those weeks where I've had kind of more duds than I did stuff I really liked. But I promise after this, I do have um, some titles that I really like, but this one unfortunately was not one. That was A Creature Was Stirring. So we got a slipcover here, which I think is pretty cool. So we'll show that off. And we'll just pop this to take a look inside. Yeah, so I wanted to really like this movie. I swear I'm not a contrarian. I thought it looked interesting, maybe a little bit generic, but I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, it's a Christmas horror movie, and it seemingly takes a different angle. The film follows a mother who's a nurse and a daughter who may or may not turn into a creature if her body temperature rises to a certain point. So, right off the bat, just so y'all don't think I'm a Grinch, I will give this movie props for being ambitious and for trying to take a new spin on holiday horrors. But I'm sorry to say the movie's badly written, confusing, and worst of all, it seems to crib some of its more interesting ideas from the movie Split. The neon look of the film is really overblown and overdone, and I think it only adds more of a headache rather than like an interesting visual flair. The acting is also kind of hit or miss, and I don't know. Overall, I appreciate its attempt, but I'm always going to keep it real with y'all, and I just didn't connect with this film. As for the transfer, like it's a newer film, so I really didn't have any issues with that. Again, I didn't really love its visual style to begin with, but the transfer seems to be really nice, and sound wise is fine as well. Honestly, I'm actually even amazed this got a Blu-ray release versus a DVD release. So for fans of this film, that's really awesome. There's no features. It's very bare bones, and that's kind of a shame because I this is a movie that I really would have liked to have heard from the director or the writer to kind of get maybe some context on like what he was going for. Again, the movie has some lofty ideas, but it's all so scatterbrained. It never really fully comes together, unfortunately. So, a creature was stirring. I think it's a pass for me, but if you're curious and you kind of love Christmas horror movies, you got a nice Blu-ray of it, and I feel like it's pretty reasonably priced. So yeah, get into it. But I'm finally getting into something that I did like. I didn't want this episode to be just a bunch of stuff that I didn't really care for. So my next title is Run Silent, Run Deep from the legendary Robert Wise. So let's take a look at this. We do have a really awesome commentary track, which is phenomenal, but I'll get into that later. So here is, and then we do have alternative cover art. So let's check that out. Which I have to say, I like this one better, but it's always nice when you get that option. So let me just put this back in here. Yeah, so this movie is only 93 minutes long, and I say that up front because the one thing I like about Robert Wise is, generally speaking, he's never one to really pad out his runtime. Like, if he's doing something that's like over 2 hours long, it's to really serve the film, not to really just kind of pad the runtime. Um, so if you don't know who Robert Wise is, I mean, you probably know who he is without maybe knowing his name. He's made movies like The Sound of Music, West Side Story, the original The Haunting, and so many more. Wise, in fact, has had won 4 Oscars in his career, and it's safe to say, whatever genre, he's damn good at his job. So this is obviously a war movie, but I think it's not. It is, but it isn't. It's one of those things that it's more focused on character, paranoia, and revenge. And I really love how he takes these themes and really just runs with it. The setting of being on a sub for the bulk of the film is really great because you do get this sense of claustrophobia, which further kind of adds to the tension. Run Silent, Run Deep also features powerhouse performances by Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster. It's an excellent film. It really is one of these things where it kind of leads you down this path, but you think you know it. You kind of think you know where it's going, but it's like it does a really good job of kind of like faking you out a little bit. And it does have a kind of a little bit of nice shock ending, which I'm not going to spoil. But yeah, I think that if you are a big fan of Robert Wise, or if you're a fan of these actors and you're a completist and you need this in your collection, yeah, it looks really good. It's I don't think it says it's a new 4K scan, but yeah, the dirt and debris is very minimum. It looks very clean. The black and white contrast is really done very nicely, and yeah, sounds really good as well. Again, we do get a really fantastic commentary track from Steve Mitchell, who, I mean, personally, he's such a cool guy. I have chatted with him before. I've interviewed him before. He really knows his stuff, and he is also there with Stephen Ray Rubin. Together, the commentary track is really informative. It gives you a lot of amazing context, not only with this setting and the period, but also Robert Wise, and really kind of deep dives his career a little bit. And rounding out this disc is a trailer, which not that exciting, but I mean, again, the commentary track is the main selling point for me, outside of just having this fantastic movie and looking really good as well. So yeah, Run Silent, Run Deep. This is one that I've actually never heard of before, but I really thought it was fantastic. Again, I hope that the idea of it being a war movie doesn't necessarily turn you off, because I think with a lot of movies like this, it's more of the loftier themes versus just being a glorified kind of war propaganda. So, and I think that actually fits in nicely with the next title that I want to talk about, and that is Coming Home. So, yeah, let's like before I get into this, let's take a look at this cover art and the extras and slipcover. And we say this a lot, but if you want this, like if you want this and this with the slipcover, you want to order it early, because those tend to go pretty quickly. Um, so this does not have um, alternate artwork. So yeah, so this was made by the great Hal Ashby. Um, and it's a film about a nurse played by Jane Fonda, whose husband, played by Bruce Dern, is going off to war. She doesn't really have a lot to do, so she wants to volunteer to help other vets. And there she meets a very crass, kind of surly soldier, and they end up having this torrid affair together. And it's really interesting because, kind of like Run Silent, Run Deep, it is a war movie, but it's more of a drama period piece about just how devastating war is, not only when you're in combat, but when you're like coming back to reality, and how psychologically messed up that makes you. But also, it's one of the few movies from the era that I think also gives you the perspective of loved ones and how they deal with people that come back from service. Obviously, this has been touched on before. I don't know. I think what's so brilliant about Coming Home is it is so close to the Vietnam War that you get this perspective that feels very authentic and really, if I'm being honest, devastating. Like, I wouldn't say that it's the bleakest movie on the subject, but I will say that it doesn't pull its punches as far as like really getting you into this mindset of surviving war and then having to mentally kind of pick up the pieces. And then again, you have sort of an very unlikely affair that kind of comes out of this. Um, so yeah, it's a really fantastic movie. It did win 3 Oscars. Jane Fonda, I think, very much deserved her Oscar in this film. Well, I think all of the Oscars well deserved in this film, but yeah, particularly Jane Fonda, who is known for being able to do light comedies, to be able to do light dramas, but here she really, I think, proved to her audience that she could really stretch herself as a performer. Like, she is going far beyond things like Barbarella, and I think this was really important to kind of showcase her having this kind of amazing range. So this release also looks really great. It's not perfect. There are a little bit of like artifacts and a little bit of debris, but I think overall it looks nice. It's not the most visually stunning movie, but I think that it does give you a really nice depth of clarity. Like, the colors really do pop. The production design, I think, is really fantastic. Again, it's so prescient to the time period that it just feels like this isn't someone's version of the 70s. Like, obviously, this is made in 78. So I don't know. I think that's why maybe these kind of movies from the period have a little bit of an advantage over some of these maybe newer films that are trying to replicate the look of the time period, where this one is very much of its time. So we do really get some nice feature. We get 2 new featurettes. And then we also get a commentary track from John Voight, Bruce Stern, and cinematographer Haskell Wexler. And the commentary track is great. I don't recall actually what release this is from, but I do believe it's maybe archived from like a previous release. But that's really nice to have it ported over here. Again, we get Coming Back Home featurette and a featurette about Hal Aspie, which I think is really fantastic. And if you're kind of new to his films, I think this is a really good primer, especially with the featurette, to maybe kind of steer you to some of his other really great films. I will try to link some other films in the description where you can check them out if you're so inclined. So yeah, you notice this is a significantly shorter episode this week. I've been kind of just getting over being sick, and which is never really that fun. And again, I don't have a co-host, but I still wanted y'all to have an episode. And next week we'll be back to normal with more titles, me with a co-host. Hopefully you still enjoyed hearing me talk about some, well, I mean, some good titles, some bad titles, but get into it. That's what we do at the Video Attic. We have a fun time talking about the good and the bad. As always, please give this video a like, subscribe. We have some great content on the way. Also, linked in the description is my new channel, the Pop Culture Corner. I've been doing some really fun videos apart from stuff that I do at Geek Vibes. And, it's not that I'm leaving Geek Vibes, it's just a way for me to be able to kind of do some fun side projects and also get to make these videos for Geek Vibes. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So please check that out. Please consider giving that a subscribe as well. And as always, thank you for hanging out with me.